Militants say Kenyan cities will run red with blood. Thursday's attack reportedly retaliation for killings by Kenyan troops fighting al-Shabaab. Investigators are making progress identifying passengers from the crashed Germanwings jetliner. Correspondent Will Ripley's in Dusseldorf.
They now have 150 DNA profiles, but it will be many months before the families receive the official confirmation that their loved ones have been identified. Just a difficult and continuing investigation here in Germany.
Gay rights activists plan to rally in Indianapolis this Final Four weekend to call for an Indiana law to specifically bar discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. The Final Four games are tonight, the championship game Monday night. I'm John Trout. Cars you can drive are at this year's New York Auto Show, along with another type.
A self-driving car developed in California's Bay Area is also at the show after successfully completing a cross-country trip. Delphi Automotive's Audi SUV began its journey near the Golden Gate Bridge and drove to Manhattan. It did not drive at night on its own, but for most of the trip the vehicle was driverless, equipped with GPS, radar sensors, and cameras to steer through traffic and brake by itself. The car is reportedly capable of making complex decisions like negotiating a four-way stop, timing a merge onto the freeway, or maneuvering around a bicyclist. I'm Michael Toscano.
Hillary Clinton could be jumping into the 2016 presidential race. Politico.com reports a lease has been signed at One Pierre Rapont Plaza in Brooklyn, New York, where Clinton is expected to run campaign headquarters. 2 floors have been rented in a building that also houses the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. I'm John Trout.
Good morning, this is Dan Weaver. Welcome to Valley Vox here on WCSS 1490 AM in Amsterdam and WKAJ 1120 in St. Johnsville. I have no guests today. Our phones are not working. What I'm going to try to do is give you my cell phone number and I'll put it on speakerphone and we'll take a few calls that way, see how it works. It may not work real well, but we'll try to do that. There's a lot I want to talk about today. There's some things I want to get off my chest before I do open it up to any calls at all. And first of all, I want to start a new contest. Now, those of you out near St. Johnsville may be aware that there's a farmer out there who's been accused of sexually abusing Amish boys who are now young men. They're maybe 20, and he's on trial in Montgomery County Court for this. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. But for our new contest, which I will have a small prize for, and this is a tough one again, but if you do the research, you can find the answer. The thing is, I could give easy questions, but it's good to make people think and research and do a little work. So now on the north side of the river there's a group of Amish. On the south side near Glen, Fultonville, there's a group of Amish. They are different. They're 2 different groups. What I want to know is, what are the names the 2 groups go by, and why do they have that name? Now, they're both Amish, but they're different. Their buggies are a little different. They have other rules and things that are slightly different. And but I just want to know what name do they go by, and where did that name come from? Now, last week I had Gary Wager on here talking about music, and I played a clip from his CD, his acoustic CD, which is a beautiful CD. But I forgot to give his website address. So his website is www.garywager.com. www.gary, G-A-R-Y, Wager, W-A-G-E-R.com. You can also pick up copies of his CD at my store on 16 Main Street in Amsterdam. Now, I see that we concluded this treaty with Iran. I'm not going to tell you how I feel about it, but I did notice that the radical Muslims in Iran and the most conservative Republicans in the United States both are opposed to the treaty for different reasons, which makes me wonder, are these 2 groups closer to each other than we think? This week I read American Sniper, the book. I have not been to the movie, but I also watched a documentary called Body of War. This was done by Phil Donahue and Ellen Spiro. And if you've gone to see The American Sniper, I would challenge you to get this documentary, Body of War, from Netflix or wherever, and watch it, because you see a different side of war. You see a young man who, on September 13th, 2001, went and enlisted out of patriotic duty. On his first mission in Iraq, he was hit by fire and paralyzed for life from the chest down. And it follows his experiences, the difficult life he had, his marriage, his separation, the difficulties he had dealing with infections and all the pills he had to take and so on, and how he became a peace activist, an anti-war activist, and how he went down to Crawford, Texas, and George Bush refused to see him. So it's worth watching. If you've been following the state news, you know that Governor Cuomo told state workers there could be no non-essential travel to Indiana. And of course that happened because in Indiana they passed this religious freedom law, which some people have interpreted, and maybe rightly so, that it means that businesses can discriminate against gays. Well, it just got me thinking though, when the governor said that there could be no non-essential travel to Indiana, I thought, this is the first time a governor has confessed that some state employees are wasting taxpayers' money by non-essential travel. I mean, if the travel is non-essential, why do we need it in the first place? On Sam Zerlo's show the other day, somebody called in and said he thought Amsterdam's population was only between like 8,000 and 10,000 because of all the houses that have been foreclosed on and torn down and so on and so forth. And he actually had a bet with Sam for a cup of coffee. Well, I'm afraid he loses. He's going to have to buy Sam a cup of coffee because I checked in the Census Department, said that in 2010 Amsterdam's population was 18,620. That's up 1.4% from the previous census, which would be the 2000 census. Now, I did see somewhere that the estimate for 2014, 2015 is that Amsterdam's population has dropped 100 or so, 200, maybe 200 people, but it's still above what it was in 2000. Now, you may have heard about the City of Amsterdam has floated this idea of trying to raise revenue through the fire department taking over or providing ambulance service. And it is important that the city try to find a way to raise revenues, because otherwise, if you don't, then all you have is cutting or raising taxes. But if you can raise revenue by other means, that's a good thing. However, nobody's mentioned this. You've heard it first here on WCSS 1490 AM and WKAJ 1120 AM in St. Johnsville. You heard it here that the city charter, Amsterdam City Charter, forbids the fire department to run an ambulance service. Let me read this, and this was updated E-code. This is from ecode360.com and was updated with all changes as of late 2014, November 2, 2014. So it talks about the fire department in Amsterdam, and it says, the functions of the fire department shall include the prevention of fires, fighting and controlling fires, and the investigation of the causes, circumstances, and origins of fires, and such other related functions and duties as the mayor may assign. Now, this is the important part. Notwithstanding this provision or any other provision of this charter or law, the fire department shall not engage in or otherwise provide ambulance services. Now, maybe I'm reading that wrong, and somebody can correct me, but I don't think I am. I'm not totally uneducated person. It says the fire department shall not engage in or otherwise provide ambulance services. So it sounds to me like if the fire department is going to take over ambulance service, then there's going to have to be an amendment to the charter. An amendment to the charter requires the citizens of the City of Amsterdam to vote on it. And that means if this is going to be part of this coming year's budget, that vote would have to be done fairly soon. You couldn't, I don't think you could wait to November to have that vote. So I wanted to mention that because in all the articles and all the things that people have said, nobody has brought that up at all. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, the whole ambulance thing in a while. I also want to bring up, because we do talk a lot about the houses being torn down in Amsterdam, but there has been some houses go up over the years, not a lot, but I thought in particular of Windswept Drive, where there's been 15 or so new houses built, and those are fairly expensive houses, and I'm sure they're assessed at a pretty good value. And we need more of that. We need streets that are really really have a lot of houses down. Maybe we need to do some building or rehabbing of houses. I see another house has gone into the land bank, so that's hopeful, positive, but to be honest with you, I'd rather see private citizens rehabbing houses than the city or the land bank having to do it. The good thing about the land bank, though, as long as that house is in that land bank, the city doesn't have to make good on the taxes to the school district or the county or anything. Another thing, the state came out with its budget. You probably read it. Well, if you can, no, you probably didn't read it, because the politicians themselves didn't even read it. It's too big. But the Empire Center for Public Policy says that now New York State is spending $4,503 every second. That adds up to, what? $250,000 every hour. In fact, in the short time it took me to tell you this, the state just spent $20,000. $4,503 New York State is spending every second. I don't know if you read my column in the Recorder today. I talked about Amsterdam's financial situation. Unfortunately, I do not write the headlines to my columns, and the headline that was given to it was city debt, and that's unfortunate because that is not the focus of my column. Now, it's true, Amsterdam's debt is high, and really probably too high. It's about $28 million from what the annual update report, the latest annual update report says. That's a lot of money. And I argue that the city has to be careful about borrowing more money because how high the debt is now, and that the city is paying somewhere around $1.8 million a year to pay the principal and interest on debt. And that all has to be factored in when you're borrowing more money. The other thing I want to say about my column, because I had a discussion on Facebook with a former Recorder employee this morning. He said that I should have posted my column on the internet because he doesn't subscribe to it and he'd be able to read it. Well, I don't feel that way myself, because I feel like if you want to read the column, you should go out and buy the paper. It's only $1, and the coupons alone are worth more than that. So, don't be cheap. Go out and buy it. I'm not saying this person is cheap that I had a discussion with. He may very well not be. But there's this idea out there that everything should be free because of the internet, that everything should be free. Well, if everything's free, how does a business keep going? How do musicians keep playing music if everyone's stealing their stuff? And how do newspapers keep going if everyone's taking their stuff and reposting it all over the internet, and then people can get it for free and not have to pay for it? And whether you like the local newspapers or not, if any of them failed, there'd be a lot of people out of jobs. So whether it's a Recorder, Leader Herald, Gazette, Times Union, it doesn't really matter. These newspapers most are doing the groundwork around here for most of the news. Them and there's not many other people out there actually in the field gathering the news. So we need to be supportive of our local newspapers. If you saw the situation, school district aid came out, and I noticed that most of the poorer school districts in the county or in the area got less funding than the wealthier ones did. Amsterdam only got an increase of 1.9%. Of course, money doesn't solve all the problems with our schools. We've been throwing money at schools for years, and what has been the outcome? Not a lot of improvement. So money is not the only solution to our schools' problems, but if you're going to give money away, why aren't we giving it more to the poorer school districts than the richer school districts? Demolition of Beechnut in Canada Jahari has been halted because of improper handling of asbestos, and they're behind in their payments to the village. So, but hopefully that will get back on track and be taken down so they can redevelop that quite a few acres there. Of course, they're going to have to make some kind of arrangement so that it doesn't flood there again, because that was one of the problems with those buildings. They flooded I think it was the 2006 flood. Those buildings were flooded. Here's an interesting thing I learned this week about Amsterdam's former Best Value Inn, and I hope it doesn't stop people from actually redeveloping that inn, but I was at a meeting, and one of the county economic development people was talking, and he said that they've done several studies on that inn, and the best studies show that anyone who takes over the former Best Value Inn, their profit at best would be marginal, and chances are that they would lose money. And that's why the proposed hotel up on Route 30 never came into being, because they did market studies, and the market studies did not support having a hotel or motel up on Route 30 in Amsterdam. Those of you who live out in the town of Canajoharie and Fort Plain, the villages, you're talking about school district merger. It looks like we may have a way of hooking my cell phone up so you can come in over the air. Okay. Yes. All right. Well, we'll try in a minute. We'll try it. I'll have
Me to call?
Yeah, go ahead. George, whose show is on after my show, is the Beatles show for an hour, and then George is on. George's show is great. He plays a lot of music. He rants and raves about, from the conservative point of view. We may not always agree on everything, but I'll tell you, I love the way he talks. He's a former drill sergeant, and when he talks, he bellows, and it's great. And he plays some good music. I love some of the music he plays. So he's going to try to call. My number, George, is 842-7504. 842-7504.
We're brain dead individual like myself.
George's got to write the phone number down. He says he's a brain damaged
Yeah,
individual.
Too many hits in the head, you know what I mean? Okay, what is it?
842-7504.
7504.
Chris.
Now that should come over. You can listen on yourself without breaking the, you know what I mean? Or you can just pop that up. Hopefully.
Okay, sorry for that dead air, which you're not supposed to have on the radio show, but today's a little different. The emergency situation here, there was a manhole fire on Main Street, Verizon wires caught on fire, the insulation or what have you, and smoke was pouring out of that there yesterday, and there were couple fire trucks down here, and there were all kinds of trucks and things. The city workers were down here. It's not ringing, George. So
842-75.
7504.
Yeah.
It's not ringing. My phone.
Do you have AT&T?
No.
That's the only one that works in here.
Okay, AT&T is the only works in here. So you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to do. I'm going to give you my number, 842-7504. You call in, I will answer it, I will put it on speakerphone, and we'll try it that way. We might have to be, the calls might have to be short. This might be a bit confusing for me, who's still,
It's only AT&T, like, you get service in here.
okay.
That's what I meant.
Oh, so you're saying that I won't get service in here?
Right.
So it's probably not going to work at all then, because I don't have AT&T, and I've only got, I've got no bar showing, you're right. So it looks to me like you're going to have to listen to me talking the whole time. And you won't be able to call in, which is unfortunate, because I was hoping to take some calls today about some of the things that I'm talking about. Anyway, I think I have enough stuff to talk the whole time myself and not say, well, we could talk about this, we could talk about that, you could call in about this. No, I'm going to just tell you, I've prepared for this show quite a bit. I prepare for all my shows a lot, so I always have a lot in front of me in case people don't call in. But back to Fort Plain and Canajoharie, talking about merging. Now, there's been a lot of school mergers around here. I'm not sure if Fort Plain and Canajoharie are necessarily the best example of schools that need to merge. They've already doing a lot of things together, and they talking about continuing to do that. The guy they had out talking to them the other day said that money was not the primary factor to consider in consolidation. And another thing that has to be kept in mind, and I realize that many schools do need to consolidate, one thing that has to be kept in mind is the more kids you put into a building or a bunch of buildings, for some of those children, maybe not all of them, but it was that way for me, the more lost they feel. the more separated they feel from their teachers. That group spirit that you have in a small school is gone. And so it actually can, I believe, in some instances, create more problems for some students to be pushed into a huge school where you're just a number and hardly anyone knows who you are. The teachers, even some of your teachers may hardly know who you are. Whereas you're in small school, you know all the teachers, you know most of the other students and so on. I understand that by merging, sometimes you save some money, sometimes there's more opportunities for students. But to me, if we're going to merge, it's not the school districts that need to merge so much as municipalities. I wrote a piece for the Gazette a couple years ago in which I suggested that Montgomery County and Fulton County merge. Now, that would require the state legislature to do that. We couldn't do it on our own. However, we not only would save money, first of all, we were one county at one time. We were a county until 1830, somewhere in there. And people, the farmers down in the valley were not happy that they had to travel to Johnstown for the county seat. So they separated, got their own county, and made Fonda the county seat. So my suggestion was, let's merge. We can save some money. We have similar goals, similar ambitions. Plus, we already share a lot of things. The community college, Chamber of Commerce, BOCES, so many things are shared between the two counties. And this would also solve the problem that we have in the town of Mohawk, for example. They're talking about building a bypass so that trucks going to the distribution center and going to the Johnstown Industrial Park would not have to go through Fonda. If you live in Fonda, you realize what a mess things are because of all those tractor trailers going through every day. You can sweep your porch off, and an hour later you got to sweep it off again. All the rumbling that you hear. I've heard that there's been several water breaks in Fonda because of the weight of the trucks going by all the time. Now, if they do this bypass, which I think is a bad idea, they're going to eat up a lot of farmland, split a lot of farms in half. And the residents of the town of Mohawk came out the other day, and well, I shouldn't say all, but a large majority of them were opposed to it. And I would be too if I were them. Now, if we were one county, we wouldn't have to have that, because you would put all your distribution centers, anything that requires heavy trucks, you would want near the thruway, which is where they should be. But for some reason, they put that distribution center in Fulton County, and it required trucks to go through the village of Fonda. It's required that bridge across the 30A bridge from Fultonville to Fonda to be beefed up, and so much construction work over the years. You go into Fonda, and there's just always construction work going on. And it's crazy when the trains and the thruway, the major transportation routes, are in the valley. Why would you put distribution center or big factories or anything like that away from those routes where trucks now have to go through villages? And now they're talking about, to avoid the village, building this expensive road, eating up a lot of farmland, cutting people's farms in half, and destroying the rural character of the town of Mohawk. That would solve that problem, because then we would have the same interests, and we could agree that no more distribution centers or factories should be built. We'd be one county, and we say we're not going to put them in the northern part of the county. We're going to keep that rural, Adirondack foothills. Any distribution centers or industrial parks or whatnot should be near the thruway to keep truck traffic off rural roads. Anyway, that's my opinion. It's not necessarily the opinion of WCSS 1490 AM or WKAG 1120 AM or the owners or managers of these radio stations, but that's mine. We see a second lawsuit's been filed against the town of Palatine over the proposed new town hall, so that issue is not dead yet. On the county level, we were told, I had a big argument with a guy who was on the committee or whatever to change the form of government. Now, I'm not against the fact that we went to a different form of county government, but I was told that it would not cost us a cent more, and that's not true. It has. First of all, there's been assistants hired that initially weren't part of the plan. We just made the county attorney went from part-time to full-time, and I have yet to read any rationale for that. So, and then even the CEO of the county's executive position was originally was supposed to be like 65,000 a year, and then it came in at 85,000 a year instead. So it has cost us more. It may be a better system, but don't say it hasn't cost us more. It has cost us more, and I just hope that that stops somewhere. You had the county legislatures trying to get more money for people who are head of committees and so on, and that was shot down, thankfully, and hopefully that will not be brought up again, and we won't see any raise there, because as a county, we just can't afford it. Today, by the way, is Passover. Tomorrow is Easter. Yesterday was Good Friday, and as I said on the internet the other day to my Facebook friends, a lot of us want Easter, but we kind of want to avoid Good Friday to get there. And so that's just a little thought for you to think about. I hope everyone listening to the station, if you're Jewish, I hope you're enjoying the Passover. If you're Christian, I hope that you will enjoy Easter tomorrow and that you will spend it with family, friends, in church, whatever. I noticed a couple restaurants, Romana's in Johnstown, and there was one in Schenectady that said, we're not open Easter Sunday no matter what. And they said, we don't care if we lose money, we're going to be shut on Easter Sunday. So I thought that was kind of nice. Now, let's get to St. Johnsville before we go to our break and talk a few minutes about this situation in St. Johnsville, and then we will talk about the ambulance service that they're trying to start here in Amsterdam. Now, for whatever reason, this has been reported in the Schenectady paper and has not been in the Amsterdam paper about this farmer in St. Johnsville who's been charged with, and his trial is going on right now. Well, I won't give his name, because if he's found not guilty, why should people know his name? Although his name is published in the paper. Anyway, these boys are now adults, but this allegedly happened when they were teenagers, one as young, I believe as young as 12. That they went to work on this guy's farm, and now they're all around 20 or so and claiming that he sexually abused them when they were teens. And so he was charged with, I forget how many counts, numerous accounts, maybe 30 some, yeah, 36, 3 dozen separate counts. And if he is found guilty, he will go to prison for the rest of his life. Now, this is an interesting case, because I don't ever recall, other than the situation where that man and that woman, those creeps up in northern New York, abducted those 2 Amish girls and abused them and then dropped them off somewhere or whatever. They're going to spend probably a good part of the rest of their lives in prison, and should. Other than that, I haven't really heard of any case like this at all. Now, this farmer is denying the charges, but he has admitted that he had sexual contact with these boys, but claims that it was when they were 17, at least 17 years old. And he's hired a big attorney from Albany, Steve Coffey. Steve Coffey is one of the top attorneys in the area, along with Terry Kindlin and Kevin Lewibrand, I believe is one, and a couple of others, big shot attorneys. And he makes a pile of money defending people, and also, of course, doing suing people. But here's the I thought rather strange defense that Coffey has come up with, probably because he doesn't really have any other defense to use against the allegations these boys have brought, and they are allegations right now, they haven't been proven. But he has a 2-pronged defense. I'll read to you from the paper. Coffey has staked Madsen's defense on 2 approaches. He argued in his opening statement that the Amish community was staunchly against homosexuality and constructed the allegations to damage the non-Amish Madsen, who is gay. Oh, I said I wasn't going to say his name. Sorry, it came out. Coffey also argued that while Madsen did have sexual contact with some of the accusers, none of it happened before the accusers were 17. Madsen testified to what he said was the Amish's staunch view against homosexuality, which could get an Amish adult shunned or ostracized. Amish who testified gave differing accounts of that. A father of 3 boys testified that homosexuality wasn't really talked about. Now, here's the thing. If homosexuality is so staunchly opposed in the Amish community, and if it means that you would be ostracized or, kicked out of the group, out of this close-knit group. And in the Amish community, that means no contact with your families. I mean, some of them violate it and do have contact with their children or with other family members who've been shunned. It does seem to most of us a severe penalty, this shunning, ostracism thing. Nevertheless, that's their belief system. That's what happens. So, if you were an Amish young man and you were involved in sexual contact, homosexual contact with a person, and you knew that you'd be shunned if you talked about it, why in the world would these men bring it up? Why would they bring these allegations against this man if it meant being shunned from the society that they were very part of, and from what I understand, want to remain a part of it? One of the men is supposed to get married. Now, he claims that he brought it up because he didn't want his younger brothers going through the same experience. So I just find it a very strange defense that he's using, and also he's really put these boys on the hot seat. Now, that's another thing. If these boys had been girls and this man had not been gay, they would have stepped on eggshells when they put him on the stand. They would have been very careful what they said. But Coffey, according to the news accounts, has not been careful. He's, asked very, very tough questions of these young men. For example, one question he asked him, and it may not be necessarily be a tough question, but he asked him, "Didn't you know what you were doing was wrong?" Well, first of all, that's an odd question. That's like asking a girl who was abused by a straight man, didn't you know what you were doing was wrong? No, I mean, when somebody's sexually abused, a child is sexually abused, they're not doing anything wrong. The person who's doing it is the person doing wrong. So I thought it was an odd question, a very strange question to ask. Anyway, I wish we had phone service today, because I'm sure some of you would like to call in and get in on that. Another thing that Coffey brought up was that about these two Amish groups. Now, they're on different sides of the river. Probably the closest they are together is 5-6 miles. And Coffey says, well, the only thing that divides them is the river and a few miles. Except that 5 miles when you're using horse and buggy instead of a car is more like 50 miles. It's not 5 miles. And also, these two groups are very, very separate from each other. They have separate churches, separate schools, separate, and the main things they might believe the same, but they have enough differences where they've decided they're not the same. In fact, they came from different parts of the country to here. They were different before they came here. It wasn't like they were part of one group and then split recently. Two separate groups. So it sounds to me like Coffey doesn't know a lot about the Amish or a lot about Montgomery County at all. And that's one of the problems that you have when you hire an attorney from somewhere else, is that they don't know the county, and they don't always, it kind of hurts them sometimes, even if they're a big name attorney like Coffey. Okay, we're going to go for a break, and I'll be back to talk some more about the ambulance service and other issues in Amsterdam, St. Johnsville, Kanjahari, and so on.
I'm Tim Everhart, and here's the latest weather, brought to you by Patriot Federal Bank. Located across the Olympic Diner on Route 30 in Amsterdam, Erie Boulevard in Kanjahari, and across from the Holiday Inn on North Comrie Ave in Johnstown. Today, March 4th, mixed rain and snow showers during the morning, with some afternoon sunshine developing. Very windy and colder, a high in the mid-40s, dropping into the upper 30s by the evening. Tonight, partly cloudy and brisk, breezy, a low of 25. Tomorrow for your Easter, some sunshine during the morning, followed by increase in afternoon cloudiness and a chance of snow or mixed rain and snow possible during the afternoon, a high in the low 40s. I'm Tim Everhart, and that was the latest weather, brought to you by your friends at Patriot Federal Bank. Hometown banking with the personal difference.
The biggest selection of wines and spirits, the lowest prices every day, convenience and friendly service. That's why you'll hear us say, we'll keep best of spirits.
Hi everybody, Swap Shop Joe here for my friends at West End Wine and Liquor. Bill and Lorraine feature a large selection of your favorite wines and liquors, great service, and some of the best prices in the area. They're located at 265 Division Street. Call them at 842-6111. And remember, West End Wine and Liquor is run by Amsterdam people for Amsterdam people.
We'll keep you in the best of spirits.
That's West End Wine and Liquor, 265 Division Street in Amsterdam.
We'll keep you in the best of spirits.
Montgomery County has 50,000 voices, old, young, male, female. Both familiar and unknown voices will tell their stories and discuss the news on Valley Vox with me, your host, Dan Weaver, every Saturday morning after Swap Shop. Valley Vox, not just talk, but informed conversation.
For 2 years, I experienced sciatic pain. I could barely walk. I had to do something, especially since I'm a nurse on my feet all day, and I love to exercise. I reached out to Dr. Shen at St. Mary's in Amsterdam. He says, I'll take that pain away. And I said, really? And he says, yeah. When I woke up from surgery, my pain was gone. And now I'm back to enjoying the things I used to do. St. Mary's and Dr. Shen gave me my life back.
Visit ChooseStMarys.com to learn more. Why have your back surgery anywhere else?
Rolling Hills Country Club, 2258 Route 5 in Fort Johnson, will be having an Easter brunch on Sunday, April 5th. Cost is $24.95 for adults and $11.95 for kids ages 6 through 12. The meal includes all your favorite breakfast delights, such as French toast, waffles, scrambled eggs, bacon, and sausage. And also comes with sides like glazed baby carrots, sweet potatoes with maple glaze, smashed potatoes, and garden salad. This special Easter brunch menu features entrees including grilled chicken Alfredo with penne, chicken parm, and grandma's eggplant parm, as well as roast turkey breast, roast beef, and honey and brown sugar smoked glazed Easter ham from our chef's carving station. And don't forget to save room for a trip to the dessert buffet table for assorted desserts, coffee, and tea. For more information or to make your reservation today, call Rolling Hills Country Club at 518-829-7423. That's Sunday, April 5th at Rolling Hills Country Club, 2258 Route 5 in Fort Johnson.
We played them when they were new.
And I'm back with Valley Vox on WCSS 1490 AM, WKAJ 1120 AM in St. Johnsville. This is Dan Weaver. I'm both host and guest today on this show because our phones are out. In case you came in late, there was a fire in a manhole on Main Street in Amsterdam, and Verizon is down there now working on it, repairing things. So, put it this way, yeah, I guess there was a fire, there was smoke, so where there's smoke, there's fire. Or as Barney Fife used to say when they found a still, where there's smoke, there's firewater. Anyway, so I'm here as both host and guest today. I didn't have a guest this week. It might have been a good week to have one, but I was planning to have a call-in show this week. This is the second time I planned a call-in show and couldn't have calls. The first time the transmitter was off the air, and today we have the transmitter's working but no phone. So back to this thing about an ambulance in Amsterdam. Now, we have an ambulance here, of course, GAVEC ambulance service, but it's been proposed that the city take over, or the city add ambulances to the fire department to raise revenue, and it's been projected that there would be $500,000 in revenue if the city did this. And I don't know whether that's true or not. I haven't seen a study that was done, the projections or whatnot. I will say this, that looking at GAVEC's 990s, GAVEC barely survives. In 2010, GAVEC only netted $307,000. That's after paying all their expenses. In 2011, they netted $104,000, so it was down. 2012, they lost money. They lost $67,000. 2013, they were back in the black, and they netted $100,000. So you have to think, well, maybe we need to consider what would happen to GAVEC too if the city fire department added ambulances. Now, I already read earlier, in case you missed it, I read earlier that the city charter says the fire department cannot provide ambulance service for the city. So somehow that's got to be dealt with, that issue. And the only way it can be dealt with that I know of is you have to have a charter amendment and the residents of the City of Amsterdam have to vote on it. And this is not the first time that the city, that it's been recommended or tried or whatever, that ambulance service be provided by the fire department, and then it would bring money into Amsterdam. This was brought up in 2004. It was brought up again in 2009, about 5.5 years ago. 5.5 years ago it was brought up. October 19, 2009, here's an article about it. I will read some of it to you because it's, important that we know what happened in the past when this came up. I tried to get a hold of somebody from GAVAC to talk about this. I wanted to know if the city had talked to GAVAC about this, if they had approached them about it all. I also wanted to know how GAVAC felt that this would impact GAVAC. Now, I understand that GAVAC doesn't get as much money sometimes from taking people from the city to the hospital because there's a number of people on Medicaid, Medicare, or whatever, and the reimbursement rate isn't as high. I don't know about any of that. Some people are saying that if the fire department had ambulances, it would actually make things better for GAVAC, but they didn't explain what that meant. I believe that was the fire chief who said that. I don't know what that means. How does that make things better for GAVAC? Anyway, back in 2009, 5.5 years ago, GAVAC was not happy when William Wills, former alderman William Wills, brought this up. Now, as I said, it was brought up in 2004. So let me, I'm going to read a fair amount of this article because I think it's important that we know what happened in the past when this idea came up. And remember, it was brought up also in 2004. So this is articles from 2009. One alderman is looking to resurrect the idea of having a city-run ambulance service, much to the dismay of officials at the Greater Amsterdam Volunteer Ambulance Corps. Okay, that's 2009. That's not now. Alderman William Wills, Democrat 4th Ward, chairman of the Public Safety Committee, said he planned to have a casual discussion about the possibility during a committee meeting Tuesday. Wills said having a city-run ambulance service might be a way to generate needed revenue for the city. Mayor Ian Thain sent a note last week to all department heads asking them to come up with ideas to cut costs and generate revenue for the city. In 2004, the same issue pitted city officials and firefighters against GAVAC. At the time, the city was looking at eliminating 5 firefighters from the 2004-2005 budget. Fire Chief Richard Liberty came up with a plan of a city-run ambulance service as a way of saving what he said would be more than $100,000 and keeping those 5 positions in the budget. However, the plan did not sit well with GAVAC officials who were looking at losing a large chunk of their business. 4 city firefighters who were also part-time GAVAC employees resigned from GAVAC at that time so they wouldn't be in the middle of the controversy. The controversy ended by public referendum. Residents voted by a 3-to-1 ratio to keep GAVAC as the primary ambulance responders, and a provision was put in the city charter that forbade the city from having its own ambulance service. The city charter would have to be amended to allow the city to have an ambulance service, okay? And that's what I said. And I didn't read this article until after I had checked the city charter about it. But anyway, Will said he thought he would bring up the issue again because GAVAC has switched from mostly volunteers to more paid positions, and they are doing better financially. Will said GAVAC is currently providing a good service for the city, but the service is something that could be done in-house with a small strain on personnel. If there isn't any interest, we'll drop it right away, he said. GAVAC Executive Director Tom Pasquarelli said he still doesn't think it is a good idea for the city to have its own ambulance service. Now, he's still, as far as I know, one of the 4 board members. They have a president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And I was hoping to reach one of those people yesterday, but I wasn't able to. GAVAC is still a volunteer organization, he said. However, volunteers are not used on the ambulances because there aren't enough volunteers who are trained. We have the highest level of paramedics in our region, Pasquarelli said. GAVAC staffs 7 ambulances each day, and 5 are dedicated to the city. The previous proposal for a city-run service allowed for 2 staffed ambulances in the city. When the fire department can't respond, there's going to be a delay in care, Pasquarelli said. Pasquarelli also said he doesn't think a city-run ambulance service would generate revenue for the city. He said GAVAC doesn't make any money off ambulance runs in the city because many of the residents are Medicaid patients with a fixed rate or don't have insurance. GAVAC breaks even by serving other areas, Pasquarelli said. So maybe this is what they're talking about. If GAVAC didn't serve Amsterdam but spread out into other areas they already have, maybe they would actually be better off. I don't know. But certainly GAVAC would have to still be here because they're providing 5 ambulances for the city every day, and the fire department will only have 2. So two obviously isn't enough if they're providing 5 for the city. So they would have to cover. And we see that GAVEC is not making a lot of money by itself. So if for some reason this actually hurt GAVEC, we would seriously have a problem, because then the city would have to go out and purchase more ambulances. If GAVEC closed down for whatever reason, they'd have to go out and buy more ambulances. So anyway, this is all conjecture. The whole thing is conjecture from the point of view of the people proposing it to my discussing it. I don't have any real opinion of whether it's a good thing or not, or whether it would work or not, or whether it would bring in revenue or not. I don't have enough knowledge. I'm just bringing up things that I can see as potential problems. And of course, the major hurdle is charter amendment. I really think that it would be difficult to get that passed in a charter amendment, unless you could really prove to the people that it would net $500,000 in revenue. If you could really prove that, then you might be able to sell it to the people. So also Pasquarelli said the city would probably have to pay more in overtime to staff the ambulances and the fire department unless more personnel was hired. Whether we're paid or volunteer, we don't cost the taxpayers of the city a dime unless they use our service, Pasquarelli said. The fire department is taking tax money and then they're going to charge people. So his argument there is, you're already paying tax money to the city if you're a property owner. You're paying tax money, but if the fire department takes over, you'd be paying tax money, but then you would also have to pay for ambulance service as well. So you'd be paying, it'd be like if you had a fire, getting charged a fee, you're paying taxes, your house catches on fire, and then the fire department sends you a bill for that fire. That's what it would be like. But the fire department doesn't do that because it comes out of your taxes. Oh, and it mentions Alderman Joe Isabel in this article. That was a long time ago. 2009.
Can I just give a little report?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you turn my mic on?
Yes. Okay, Joe's going to give us a report on the telephones.
All right, there was a fire last night in the manhole by your store over on Market and Main.
Right.
It affected a 1,200 pair cable. They actually just cut the cable to take out the bad section, damaged section, and they are going to start splicing it. They do expect that it's going to probably take most of tonight, overnight, and most of tomorrow. A large area on the south side is being affected by it right now, and naturally we are here. We have no phones, but they said that it's there's an electrical hazard, I guess, and that's one of the severe problems. They're trying to trace what caused the problem.
Sure.
And they have men down there working on that right now. They will till it's back. But they actually had to take some other people out of service because when they cut through that big cable,
right?
It's the old-fashioned cable, Dan.
Yeah.
They have a big lead shielding, and they have paper
around it
instead of the.
So they think maybe the paper caught fire.
The paper burned back because something applied a voltage to it. And that's under pressure. They keep that under gas pressure.
Yeah.
To keep the water out.
Right.
And it actually started to burn. It started burning back up, back up inside. So
National Grid's been down there earlier in the week. They were down there maybe last week too, digging up stuff. And
I
don't know what the heck they were doing.
What's happened right now is there's a high voltage that hit the telephone cable that caused the fire.
Yeah.
It wasn't the telephone cable didn't cause the fire.
Right.
And a lot of the people on the south side are out right now. I was just over at Southside Food Company. They have no phones, but they are open.
Okay.
Perillo's is over there on the south side, and he's open tonight.
Right.
You can't get any reservations.
Right. Just have to show up to Perillo.
So make sure the people over, the people out there know that they are still open.
Sure. Okay.
And thank you very much. Sorry
Thank you, Joe. No, I appreciate the update. So in case you came in late, that's why we're not taking calls today, because there's no phone service down here. But the many businesses on the south side, some of them support the station. They are open, but you won't be able to get reservations. You won't be able to call unless they provide a cell phone number somehow, on their Facebook page. And maybe you can contact them through their Facebook page. Most of them have that, and ask them for a reservation that way. The interesting thing today is that when telephone, especially landline service is down, but it not only affects landline, sometimes it affects your internet too. But when it's down, there's other ways of contacting people, especially if you have a cell phone, if you have access to the internet and can contact people through Facebook messaging, send a message to their cell phone or whatever. There's a variety of ways you can contact people. Anyway, back to this thing about the ambulance. As I said, I pretty much had finished that article, but as I said, there is precedent for trying this and it not working. Now, Mayor Thane said that things have changed, and she may very well be right. I'm not going to, she knows more about that than I do. So it may possibly work out. I think the idea of going after revenues is a good one, though. I've often thought, and I believe Mayor Thane brought up a thing about some kind of energy plant, some plant that would produce energy up near the clock building or something. That's an area which I think cities ought to really look into, and this is just my opinion, is renewable energy. Solar energy, which the city is doing. It's taken some time to get this done, but there's going to be solar panels put on public safety buildings, City Hall. You won't see them on top of City Hall. They have a very low profile. They're supposed to be on the Public Works building and several other buildings. And that's a great move forward right there that the city's making. But there's other options out there, and one is windmills. Now, I know there's a lot of opposition to windmills. I've been out to Fairfield and Herkimer County, and I don't know what the big deal is. When you got to put up with trains going through the valley, when you also have to worry about oil trains going through the valley and tipping over and spilling oil all over the place and catching on fire, when you have to worry about underground pipes, and underneath all our country is an incredible number of pipes. It's just unbelievable. And this didn't happen till about the 1940s. You didn't have all these buried cables and gas pipes and oil pipes and so on. But anyway, I think windmills are an alternative to it, and there have been cities that have invested in windmills. Now, there was one in Rhode Island that did that. They were making a pile of money off of it, saving on their energy bill and making some money somehow. Unfortunately, they went with a fly-by-night company, and the turbine had problems eventually on the windmill, and when they went to get it repaired, the company didn't stand behind the product, or they'd gone out of business. I forget which now. And so this town is stuck with this windmill. So obviously you'd have to go with a reputable company if you're going to do anything like that. But I've often thought that maybe Ada and the city ought to look into energy, because energy is one of the, it's a huge expense for the city, the electricity, heat, and so on. I'm planning to put a heat pump in my house and solar panels, and most of the electricity for running the heat pump will come from the solar panels, which will lower my bills, and I'll be using renewable energy, which I like the idea of that. There's only so much oil and gas in the ground, and maybe there's enough for 100 years, maybe there's enough for 300, who knows, but it's not going to last forever, and we're not doing our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren any favors by using it up fast, and not providing any other alternative energy sources. Okay, I will tell you a little bit in case, I hope you'll go out and buy the Recorder today and read my article totally, but I will just mention a few things that I said in it. What I did is, there are two reports came out. One was the annual update report, the city's annual financial update report. It actually is not the one that should be out now. It's more than a year overdue, but Matt Agresta is starting to get things caught up there in the controller's office. So I examined that report in detail, and another report came out, and that came out from the Empire Center for Public Policy. What they did is they took the tax rates of various communities and compared them. But they put together school tax, village tax, and county tax to come up with an effective tax rate. Now, for Amsterdam, the effective tax rate they came up with was $34.02 per thousand. And I heard somebody say, or somebody wrote on Facebook the other day, that Amsterdam had the highest taxes in New York State. Well, everyone says New York State has the highest taxes in the country, so if that's true, that Amsterdam has the highest in the state, then we would have the highest in the country. Well, it's not true at all. I got to be honest with you. People, and most of you who listen to my show, I'm sure you don't do it. But there are people that call into the station, call into other talk shows, write letters to the editor, and they pull stuff out of their hat. They don't research things. Amsterdam's tax rate is $34.02 per thousand, effective tax rate. That's putting all your taxes together. And that doesn't look too bad when you compare it in this report to Albany, which is $41.67 a thousand, Fort Johnson, $41.88, Gloversville, $52.42, Johnstown is even higher at $37 per thousand. Rensselaer, $37.35. Rome, $42.46. Schenectady, $43.58. And here's, I think, the highest in the Mohawk Valley, St. Johnsville. All you people out in St. Johnsville, all your taxes together come out to $50.42 per thousand. That's a lot. And you have one of the poorest school districts, and you don't receive the state aid that you should receive. So if I was living out in St. Johnsville, I might be up in arms about that. We're doing better than Troy. Troy's $37.61. Then I looked at the annual financial update report, and that's a 100-page report. There are maybe 10, 12 pages that have virtually nothing on them or nothing on, but still it's close to 90 pages of material. And it does seem to me that the city is going in the right direction. The way I put it is I'm cautiously optimistic about Amsterdam's financial situation now and their financial situation in the future. And it's interesting because I opened the paper today and those are the very words that Mayor Thane used in the article about the budget. Cautiously optimistic. My issues that I have are the amount of taxation, and not the amount of taxation, that's an issue for people who live here, but the amount of debt. The city's debt is $28 million, and they budget more than $1.7 million a year to pay that off. So I have an issue with that. That needs to be brought down, and also the not only does that need to be brought down, but the general fund needs to be higher. It's now $600 and some thousand, which is better than at the end of 2012 when it was only 300 and some thousand. But all this the sky is falling stuff that we heard from people a couple years ago just isn't happening. People were talking about maybe the best, I think it was Dave Davis was saying, well, maybe the best bet is for the state to take over Amsterdam. Well, the state is not in any hurry to take over cities. It's a desperate move when that happens. The city would be so in trouble, like Troy was many years ago. Before the city will take it over, it's got to be in serious trouble. Before the state will take it over, I should say. And then people were saying the general fund, there's a deficit and there's a negative fund balance. There is no negative fund balance. The reason people were coming up with this negative fund balance is they were putting in the money that the city owes. You can't take that $28 million or any part of it and stick it into put it up against the funds and then say there's a negative fund balance. The only thing you can do is include the amount that is spent every year to pay down the principal and the interest, which is $1.7 or so million. And even with that $1.7 million included in the budget and so on, the city does not have a negative fund balance. So stop saying it. Don't go around saying the city has a negative fund balance. The city's going to go bankrupt. The city isn't even close to going bankrupt. We're not on the verge of bankruptcy. It's not going to go bankrupt. This is just nonsense that people are pulling out of their hat or somewhere else and spewing because they want, to promote some political agenda or whatever. On the other hand, those of you going around saying the city has no financial problems, everything's great, everything's hunky-dory, that's not true either. The truth is that Amsterdam is doing better than it was, but it's got a long way to go. The $28 million debt needs to be paid down, and the general fund needs to be built up. But we have this other problem, and that is we have many public works that need to be taken care of. We have a public safety building with problems, mold, and so on. Many things need to be done. And if you let them go another year or 2 years or whatever, and some of them have been let go for more than, maybe 10 years, 15 years, whatever. They've been let go longer than the people in office now. They've been declining for years. So if you let them go farther, what happens? It's going to cost you more. Materials go up every year, cost of labor goes up every year, and the cost of interest may go up if the Fed increases the interest rate, and the building deteriorates even more, so you have more problems. Well, I'm almost out of time, and I hope you were able to listen today and enjoy a little bit of what I had to say. My name is Dan Weaver. This is Valley Vox on WCSS 1490 AM, WKAJ 1120 AM in St. Johnsville. I'll be back next week, same time, 11:05 AM, right after Swap Shop on Saturdays. And I don't know what I'm doing next week. I don't know whether I'm going to be a guest on or not. But I will be here, and I'm sure the phones will be back. So I hope you'll stay tuned to WCSS and listen to the Beatles show, and then that's followed by George's show, and he plays some great music. And for those of you who are conservative, you will like the things he has to say. So thank you for listening today. Have a happy Passover today and a happy Easter tomorrow.